providing value to them. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and like Kitfox is going to be turning 8 years old the next
Wow.
year, and like that's a number that sounds ridiculously high to me. And so like among the Kitfox team, we're going to eat cake, and we're going to. I mean, we'll probably still be working from home, I guess, depending on how the pandemic's going. But I mean, and I'm sure we'll tweet about it, but I don't expect it to be something that's for the players, and that's okay. It can still just be for us.
Yeah. No, and that's good, and that's important too. And I think to celebrate those milestones. I mean, and think about it, 8 years. I mean, what was it? Mario was only like 35. Like that sounds crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I first started Kitfox, I had a friend, like Happy Games had just turned 5 or something.
Oh wow!
And I was like, 5 years? That's impossible. I bet Kitfox will never last that long. So yeah, it's the time goes quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. So do celebrate your games. I'm not trying to discourage celebrations at all.
Yeah, it's just be mindful of how you celebrate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in light of that, I'd love to now talk about, before we start wrapping up, lessons learned. So to start, like, what advice would you give to teams that are finally at this benchmark, just launched their game or approaching launch, and are unsure about their marketing strategies moving forward after the launch?
I would sit down and do a formal, like take some notes and write them down to sort them out. What are the sentiments that people are expressing on the various communities, channels? It can feel like a lot because a lot just happened and you're emotionally ragged. I think, you can continue as you have been, but like you need to take a breath. You need to take care of yourself. And especially if this launch has been disappointing, you might need a couple weeks to or depending on how sustainably you were working before launch, you might need longer than that. But your communities might need you right now, so don't immediately disappear for months. But what I was going to say was, when you're ready, you absolutely have to sift through and make sense of what your game strengths are, what went well with the launch, what didn't go well with the launch, and just what people are feeling. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, they liked it, they didn't like it. It's more like, what did they like? What are they struggling with? What are they not understanding? And it can vary wildly. So we have a document internally that talks about, like, what are people liking on Twitter? What are people liking on Discord? What are people liking on the Steam forums? And what did the press like? And knowing all of these things can help you tailor your activities going forward. Because so now you used to have only one kind of person, really. You used to have a person who has heard of your game and hasn't bought it yet. And that used to come in a few different flavors. Of course, different people were different levels of engagement or different evangelists or things like that. But at the end of the day, like, all of their behavior was fundamentally the same. They hadn't bought it. Now you have people who have bought it and people who haven't bought it. And within each of those categories, you have, the various different levels of knowledge and engagement and things like that. So the important thing is to know that sometimes you'll be talking to people who already own the game, who want to engage with it from a loyalty perspective. Maybe they want an excuse to tell their friends about the game again. Maybe they want just to interact with you because they're a fan of your game, and they think that that's cool, that you made it. But you can't only talk to them. You also have to talk to the people who haven't bought it yet, and you can't only talk to the people who haven't bought it yet and ignore the people who are your biggest fans, who are your loyal customers. So just be mindful of how they're feeling and the kinds of things they're saying, and just don't ignore one or the other. Try to target what you're saying. Again, empathy is the core of marketing, which sounds, I don't know, diabolical if it's used by sociopaths. But like, if you're a person who feels things for other humans, then you should understand why someone wouldn't want to be ignored when you're tweeting about your game. So just try to keep and if you have this list of all the different kinds of people out there and how they're feeling, it'll be easier later to keep track of like, oh, when was the last time I addressed this person and talked to them about the game? And then, just keep it in your rotation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's some really powerful stuff. I know some of the exercises that I have some of my clients go through are kind of like persona building ones, which starting out from early stages can be kind of a challenge. But again, I think at the very core of what that does, and what you're saying too, is it helps you have a better understanding of empathy, even if you don't necessarily know everything about that person. But that's why it's such a grueling process to really think about what you think you know about these people. But then in time, because you're always going to find out this information one way or another, what people feel and say, and keeping, like you guys do, that live document, because then it could either further validate those types of personas, or you find out that there's different ones, or you were way off, or whatever the case may be, because then you just keep cycling that out, and then it will help with those specific areas in which to approach, which I want to get then ask in terms of of those areas, or let's say strategies, tactics, things like that. In general, what did you find from everything you just shared with us now? What do you think or what do you find to be the greatest benefit to a marketing strategy post-launch, knowing everything that you just shared about these personality types?
I mean, it's going to sound really basic, but to me, it's endurance and just knowing that it's going to be a long road. I mean, if you've been working on a game for, let's say, 3 years, that's a long time. 3 years is a long time, and you're probably sick of your game. You kind of don't want to talk about it anymore. You've been spending so long trying to get people excited about it. And whether it's a success or a failure, you kind of can just come up with various reasons to walk away. And if you feel that way now, imagine how you're going to feel in 5 years. But you know what? People are still going to want to buy it in 5 years. Right. So to them, it's still a new game, and it's going to be on new discounts, and maybe it'll be on new platforms, and it'll still be fresh for them the way it was for you 3 years ago. So I think the biggest benefit is really figuring out how to do it sustainably so that you can imagine yourself still helping people find and enjoy and be loyal to the game in 5 years from now. And so that'll take emotional endurance and professional endurance and patience with yourself and with this customer base that seems to always be frustrated with the same things for years and years. But just got to work on it. Got to stay long suffering and stay cheery. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another way to look at it too is in a way, if you look at it from that approach, it's going to definitely revive some of your drive. Thinking back to those key moments and what you were doing and the excitement you got from new people, and kind of reliving that through new people, I think is always probably going to be an exciting step. And if you approach it from that way, in a way, it can kind of revive all that. And plus, it's going to help you out with all your other future endeavors and other projects too, to get that feeling. But even going back to kind of reminiscing on that project itself and reviving that feeling again, I think that's going to be helpful in terms of that endurance that you talk about.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up here. And but before we go, I was just wondering if you had any quick tips or suggestions. I know you provided a couple already, but any others that you would like to share with indie devs that are listening today?
Absolutely. Something we didn't cover was actually how quickly to discount your game, because that is a huge aspect of a post-launch marketing strategy. And especially if your game didn't do well at launch, it can be very tempting to cut. And especially for a game that people are saying is overpriced, like Lucifer Within Us has a price complaint because of the short length.
Yep.
It can be very, very tempting to either reduce the price or to throw it on heavy discount quickly. And both of those are a mistake, in my opinion, for most cases. Changing the price to be lower, first of all, doesn't achieve almost anything because it's not newsworthy, so nobody will know the price went down. And none of the platforms are equipped to inform users that the price went down either. So what will end up happening is that you'll just have this lower price, but people will still see complaints that it's overpriced. And so they'll think, oh, it's cheap and overpriced. Wow. And so I've talked to indies that have been very sad after reducing their price, unfortunately. So it's one of those things you can't go back from, it seems. And you also don't want to discount too quickly, because that also signals to players or customers that you don't believe in the value of your game.
Yep.
And even though, like, it would be really great for Lucifer Within Us, I think, to go on discount sooner, because it, you know, maybe we did slightly make the price too high for most Steam users. Emotionally, they still need to see that the game is high value. And so it's going to be a while before maybe it gets to a price that most of the wish listers are ready to pull the trigger on. And we just have to accept that while we can afford to. Obviously, if we were about to have layoffs or the company was in danger financially, then we'd have to maybe consider more drastic measures. But it would be sacrificing the long term in order to benefit short term. And that's never what I would recommend to anybody in any field. I'm very long term oriented. I guess that's my main tip I'm going to repeat on every podcast I'm ever on, is think of the long-term benefits. And plan for the long term. Plan for yourself in 5 years from now.
No. Yeah, definitely.
Because all the data shows that if you can afford to discount gently over the coming years, then you'll make more money overall.
Yeah.
And have happier customers. My other major tip would be to know that when you do get to the point, whether it's now or in some years from now, when you get to the point where you can do a heavy discount, you will get more customer service problems. And that's just how it is. Part of it is that you get people on worse machines. That is part of it, especially on PC. There's such a huge amount of hardware fragmentation that you'll get people on very, very low end machines around the world that could only afford to buy it when it was a lower price. And unfortunately, their machines might have more trouble running it. So just be aware that when you do a heavy discount, you're going to need to spend more time on customer service and customer care. But the other reason that happens is the sunk cost problem, which is sunk cost fallacy, as everyone probably knows, is that the more you spend on it, or when you spend some money on something, you automatically assign it a certain amount of value. And part of it is that, you know, when you don't spend very much money, you don't get very attached to something. But a much bigger part of it is that if someone's only spending $2, let's say, on this game, they're like, oh, it's $20, $2, that's a great deal, I'm going to click buy. They didn't spend the time to look at it. They didn't really agonize over, is this actually worth $20? They just saw it, oh, it's probably worth $2. Click. And that might mean they're a terrible fit for your game, especially for indie games that are innovative or niche or whatever. There's a high chance that you're going to get a lot of false positives of people who at a first glance thought, maybe I'll like this game. And then they actually play the game and they realize they're not in the audience at all. And they're very unhappy about their $2. And then they don't even have the sunk cost to help like lure them into playing it for another 5 minutes when maybe they would have liked it. Instead, they bounce after 30 seconds with a bad review. So I don't know, it sounds sad, but just know that maybe unless you have major content updates later or major changes later, or if you launch to a platform that's a better fit, usually when you launch, you'll have your highest user review score and it will only go down as you discount. So just be emotionally ready for that.
Yeah, good point.
I think those are my main tips.
All right. No, I like those a lot, especially the last one too, because even on like a flip side, even going further, what was it? A few weeks ago, I was reading something where this person was covering, oh, look, there's Switch games, excuse me, that are, this one Switch game is only 9 cents. And I had to go check it out. And I'm like, okay, it's 9 cents, but I'm not even gonna to me personally, my behavior was, I saw the video and everything. It definitely wasn't worth 9 cents. I thought it was worth more, but I'm like, for 9 cents, I'm not even going to bother with it because my perceived value now is like, you're really scraping the barrel. I mean, it's 8 cents away from a penny, for goodness sakes. Like, I didn't even want to bother with it. And
Well, there is a problem with the way that the Switch currently displays games on their store, where it orders them by price ascending.